Thanks, Michael.
Support for WNYC comes from the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, presenting Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, performing 2 new pieces and company standards, May 12th through 14th. Tickets at njpac.org or ticketmaster.com.
On the next All of It, the hilarious and profound play Fat Ham is a Shakespeare-flavored take on the goings-on at a black family's barbecue. It grapples with issues of identity, belonging, and kinship. And yes, there is the matter of the ghost of a dead father. It won the Pulitzer last year. Now it's on Broadway. We'll speak with 2 cast members. I'm Allison Stewart. Join me for All of It, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC News Hour on 93.9 FM. Let's check in with London to see what they're working on. London, good morning.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Razia Iqbal. On today's News Hour, fierce fighting rages in Sudan for a 3rd day between the army and a rival paramilitary force. 100 people have been killed. And a prominent opposition figure in Russia has been sentenced to 25 years in prison for treason. BBC News Hour coming up at 9 on 93.9 FM, WNYC.
55 with fog and clouds. Those clouds give way to sunshine with a 50-50 chance of showers this morning. And then more fog later on. Highs in the upper 60s today, becoming gusty as well. It's 8:51.
Return of the debt ceiling.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by SoFi. With a SoFi high-yield savings account, members can earn more. Plus, deposits are FDIC insured. Learn more at SoFi.com. Get your money right. SoFi Bank N.A. member FDIC. And by Angie, dedicated to helping homeowners get home projects not just done, but done well. Reviews, pricing, and booking at Angie.com or on the Angie app.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore in for David Brancaccio. As the House returns from a break, the next major drama on Capitol Hill is the debt ceiling. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is planning to lay out his case today for raising that ceiling, but in return, he wants the government to cut spending. He's scheduled to give a speech later this morning at the New York Stock Exchange. We hit the debt limit in January, and the Treasury Department has been scrambling to pay the bills as the ceiling approaches, using what it calls extraordinary measures. Marketplace's Nova Safo has more.
When announcing his plan to address Wall Street, Kevin McCarthy referenced a speech given by President Ronald Reagan in the 1980s calling for less government spending. McCarthy said he's seeking what he called a responsible debt ceiling increase, which would include budget cuts. There is no doubt that the debt limit must rise. Experts say if it doesn't, the nation risks a potentially catastrophic default on its financial obligations, which could send the world economy into uncharted turmoil. But what is in doubt is whether the fractious Republican majority in the House can agree on how and what to cut from the federal budget in return for raising the limit. Some Republican lawmakers have suggested ideas such as reverting back to government spending levels prior to the pandemic, or tying future government spending increases to inflation. The White House wants Republican lawmakers to coalesce behind a proposal, while also saying that the debt limit should rise without conditions. The Treasury Department says lawmakers probably have until early June before a default. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
There's a fight brewing in Europe over Ukrainian grain. Poland is banning it. Ukraine says, please don't ban it. The EU says Poland can't ban it. Officials from Poland and the Ukraine are meeting to talk about it today. The BBC's Adam Easton has more from Warsaw.
An influx of cheap Ukrainian wheat into Poland has caused problems for the Polish government. On the one hand, it wants to continue to support Ukraine, but it also needs to be seen to protect its own farmers, who are protesting against lower grain prices, especially because it relies on their votes to get re-elected in a few months' time. Polish officials insist the ban is an emergency measure, but is legal. The European Commission disagrees. Ukraine wants to re-establish the transit of grains through Poland, and officials from both sides are expected to discuss ways to solve the problem.
That's Adam Easton with our editorial partners at the BBC. Let's do the numbers. The FTSE in London is up more than 0.1%. The Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up around 0.1%. With the Dow future up 48 points, the yield on the 10-year Treasury is 3.558%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by UKG, an HR payroll and workforce management solution designed to help make a fairy tale workplace a reality. UKG, our purpose is people. And by Amazon Business, helping provide a smarter, easier way to get the supplies businesses need to thrive. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying.
There's something both the Biden and Trump administrations seemingly agree on: bringing jobs back to the U.S. from overseas. The reasoning is pretty straightforward. Made in America is understandably popular among voters, and both administrations have serious concerns relating to China, both economic and national security related. So how have they tried to bring back jobs? Well, it's included tariffs on Chinese imports and subsidies for certain U.S. industries. But is that the right way to go about it? Adam Posen, president of the Peterson Institute for International Economics, says these types of policies can actually be self-defeating. He wrote about that in a piece for Foreign Policy magazine titled "America's Zero-Sum Economics Doesn't Add Up." He's with us to talk about it. Hi, Adam.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You basically argue that the emphasis under both the Biden and Trump administrations on bringing manufacturing production home has gone a bit too far. What are some of the policies that particularly trouble you?
First is they very much focus on the American headquartered companies and discriminate against companies even from close allies. And this diminishes competition. This diminishes innovation. I think a second point is because of what it does to the rest of the world. You're basically telling developing countries that they have no choice but to buy from the U.S. You're basically telling middle income and high income countries that they want to subsidize too and have a race and divide up the world economy. The third thing I think they're messing up is that they're misunderstanding the nature of the threat from China in the economic sphere. I think China needs to be confronted. The Chinese government needs to be confronted when they're abusing human rights unduly or pressuring their neighbors or directly interfering with U.S. security interests. But the way to do that, unfortunately, is by directly confronting them in the security sphere.
But on the other hand, China defines its national security partly as economic security. It uses state-sponsored industrial espionage. It offers generous subsidies. How should we respond to that, if not through the measures that we're currently taking?
The fact is, of course, they've been stealing technology. It actually doesn't matter as much as people think it does. People have been stealing intellectual property. Part of the U.S. industrial base in the early 19th century was based on intellectual property theft from the U.K. This is the key point. The advantage of technology is not in its production, it's in its use. And the whole point of the Biden and the Trump view is that it's in the production, and this is a fundamental fallacy.
So basically, we don't have to invent a technology in order to benefit economically from it.
Yeah, the huge revolution in the information technology age in the 90s and early 2000s. What it was not that the U.S. had all the right hardware, let alone that we were producing the actual chips. What threw the U.S. ahead was the adoption and adaptation of these technologies throughout the economy. So we have just in our lifetimes a very real example of this kind of difference between production obsession versus adoption.
Adam Posen is president of the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Thank you so much.
Great to be on Marketplace.
And we'll have a lot more from that interview online at marketplace.org. In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC is supported by the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, presenting Brahms and Dufnayi, a program of works for winds, strings, and piano. May 2nd at Alice Tully Hall. Tickets at chambermusicsociety.org.
Up next, the BBC NewsHour on 93.9 FM and the takeaway on AM 820. Yesterday was Orthodox Easter, and today on the Brian Lair Show, the role of the Orthodox Church in geopolitics and Russia's war against Ukraine. Plus, why Governor Kathy Hochul's housing plan is so unpopular outside the city. That's at 10. 55 and cloudy right now. Today gradually turning sunny and 69 for a high. Tomorrow mostly sunny and 58, and then On Wednesday, sunny and 62.
This is WNYC, FM, HD, and AM, New York.
Welcome to NewsHour from the BBC World Service. I'm Razia Iqbal. Fierce fighting continues for a third day in Sudan in a battle between two rival armies for control of the country. We'll hear from the capital and from Darfur, which is a stronghold of one of the paramilitary groups. Civilians are being killed and there is widespread looting and now deprivation.
At the first day in Niala, we have lost 22 people. We need water. We don't have electricity. We don't have fuels. We don't have anything.
The Russian opposition activist Vladimir Kara-Murza has been sentenced to 25 years for treason and criticizing the war in Ukraine. His lawyer says his client is determined and far from deterred.
When he heard it was 25 years, he said, "My self-esteem even rose. I realized I'd been doing everything right."
And we have a rare report from Myanmar. First, the world news.
This is Danielle Yawowiecka with the BBC News. Hello. A court in Russia has sentenced one of President Putin's most outspoken critics to 20